right. Hello and welcome. You're listening to Hobby Homies. We are your weekly war game and board game podcast. My name's Shane. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Fox.
What's good? Now I'm going to auto-tune that in post.
Yeah, dude, you'll sound like Will I Am or someone by the time you finish doing that. One of those music kids listen to these days.
That's such a boomer thing to say. Will I Am or something. Okay, dude.
I'm not a boomer. I'm only 28. But I do listen to 3AW, so that's probably bringing the age out.
Yep.
We're talking RPGs.
Yeah, man.
So I have a question for you, Fox. What's an RPG?
Excellent question. I thought you knew, actually.
Well, I've been researching for the last 3 days, about 10 hours in total. So
It's truth. Wow.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah. I mean, so look, at its core, an RPG stands for role-playing game. However, if you were to translate that literally, that's pretty much every single game that you've ever played. You take on the role of a character. So RPG typically refers to, well, we're talking about specifically tabletop RPGs, because RPGs for video games is a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But it's typically a game where you play as a character, and over time you develop that character. You develop their skills and abilities, but you also develop them as a character. You build their story. They're more story-driven tabletop games.
We haven't really dabbled deep in the RPG world. Like, we've both played a lot of RPG video games. You know, I'm sure you've played like Morrowind and Skyrim and all those kind of games. But
all of them.
But like when it comes to the pen and paper RPG, that's really like uncharted waters for us. Like, we've dabbled a little bit, but yeah. So
I think if I'm thinking about this spectrum of like all the different RPGs and all the different rules and types that there are, it's just so vast that my mind just boggles. But I know the two ends of the spectrum. So up one, you and I have played Gloomhaven, the board game. That's probably the most rule-defined RPG you'll encounter, in the sense that everything is already... It's so well-defined, in fact, that they can put it in a box and give it to you and you can play straight away.
Yeah.
The classes of the characters are already made for you. The skills and abilities that you can learn are predetermined. You pick from a small pool of them, but they're already decided for you. You can attach equipment, but that's limited to the deck that they give you. The monsters that you encounter are predetermined. So all of that kind of stuff is great, because it means you can play the game, and as someone running it, the DM, which stands for Dungeon Master, or GM could stand for Game Master. It's the person that controls the universe and creates the rules and interactions. For them, it's really easy to pick up a game that has everything laid out for them, like Gloomhaven. Whereas up the other end of the spectrum, where there's no board, there's no pieces, it's just you and me, for example, we could create an RPG. I could say, Shane, you enter a library. It's cold, it's dark, it's mysterious. It smells of intrigue and silence. And
smells of silence.
And it smells of silence. The dirtiest smell of them all.
Oh, God.
Silent but deadly. And I'll create a scene for you, and I would say to you, what do you do? And you'd be like, well, I'm going to light a grenade and throw it in the middle of the library and run out and see what happens. And, you know, there's no dice or anything, so I, as the game master, would decide how your interactions resolve. So yeah, look, I'd be remiss to talk about RPGs and the types of them without talking about D&D, because that is the one that people... It's almost synonymous. If you say I'm playing a tabletop RPG, I'm going, D&D? And you're like, well, yes, but this type of D&D or this edition and all that kind of stuff. So
it uses D&D's rule set, and it, so. Well, it's funny you mentioned D&D, because that's the one thing I've been living and breathing for the last 3 days straight.
It's in your blood now. It's in your bloodstream.
Yeah, I feel very, very intimate with D&D, having never even played a game. But
wow.
I know its spots.
Oh, so after your first date, you feel pretty confident.
Oh, yeah.
You're pretty confident with D&D there.
You know it, dude. You know it.
Yep.
So,
what specifically?
Well, look, I've put together sort of a history of D&D. Yeah. So, before we can dive into the history, we need to take a ride in the way, way back machine and take a brief look at the early days of wargaming.
That's my favorite machine that you own, actually. The way, way back machine. You take me in there frequently.
You know it. So, the first of the military games is thought to be Way High, which is called Encirclement, a Chinese strategy game, later known as Go.
Okay.
A similar game came to be shortly later called Chaturanga, which is an Indian game system from which they derived chess, and its various versions came about.
Ooh.
Chess itself gave birth to at least one game, which is more formally depicted armed combat. This was a 1644 design known as the King's Game, from one Christopher Weekman. It included 30 pieces per side of 14 military types, each with different fixed rate of movement. Like its predecessors, it was played principally for pleasure, but differed by emphasis on the strategic level of war.
I just choked there for a second.
Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing?
So, I'm so curious about these early games. Like, do they exist now? Like that one you just mentioned with 14 different military pieces? Can I play that now?
I'm sure you could look it up. I actually, that's one thing I sort of didn't go on a tangent and start looking into while putting this together.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to suss that out and bring that information back to the podcast because that would be dope, man, to play like one of those first ever. I bet it's terrible, but...
Oh, it's got to be bad, but it'd be cool. It's called The King's Game, so check it out.
Okay. All right.
The first game to break away from chess, however, was invented by Helwig, Master of Pages, to the Duke of Brunswick in 1780.
Wow.
Such cool titles back in the day,
man. What a title.
I know, right? Master of Pages.
I feel like you're the Master of Pages right now.
I've got enough in front of me.
Don't want to call you Shane, Master of Pages.
This game included 1,666 squares, each coded for a different rate of movement depending on the terrain that square represented. Playing pieces now represented groups of men instead of a single soldier, and each unit was rated for different movement. Infantry could move 8, heavy cavalry 12, for example.
Okay.
There are also special rules for such things as pontoneers, which is a boat. I had to look that one up because I was like, what the fuck is a pontoneer?
Pontoneer? That needs its special rules. It sounds very special.
And in 1795, Georg Vintricius, that's a mouthful, a military rider from Schleswig, produced a more complex version of Helwig's game. He modified it in 1798 by using a map board that depicted actual terrain on the border between France and Belgium. So that's
1798.
Yeah, dude, it goes way back. And like, I know everyone's thinking like, isn't this supposed to be a history on D&D? It is. I just thought we may need a little background context before we can really get into it.
Until you know about the King's Game and whatever the last one you said was, you don't know about D&D. You think you do.
That's right. Okay, now we'll fast forward to the 1960s.
Wow, just jumped 200 years. There weren't playing many games between there.
Nothing happened then.
Man, that game was elite. It's like the Warhammer of... Oh,
exactly, dude. Exactly.
Sorry, I don't know if you can hear my Darth Vader bottle opener in the background. I forgot about that when I cracked this beer. Carry on. So what year are we in now?
We're in 1960, dude.
Cool.
So the Beatles took the world by storm. Man walked on the moon. The 8-track audio format was developed. JFK had his head blown off in Dallas. And a young Gary Gygax created an organization of wargaming clubs and founded the Gen Con Gaming Convention.
I love that you put all of those in the same tier. You're like, here are all the notable events of the 1960s, less the Vietnam War. Got JFK getting his head blown off. Very, very crass, by the way.
It happened.
And also, someone started some board gaming groups.
Yeah. Now, a little about Gary Gygax. He was born in Chicago, Illinois, on the 27th of July, 1938. They weren't there for long. In 1946, the family moved to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Throughout his childhood and teen years, he developed a love of games and an appreciation for fantasy and science fiction literature. At the age of 10, he and his friends played the sort of make-believe games that eventually came to be called the live-action roleplay. His father introduced him to fantasy and science fiction through pulp novels, the equivalent of modern-day comic books. His interest in games, combined with an appreciation of history, eventually led Gygax to begin playing miniature war games in 1953 with his best friend, Don Kay. As teenagers, Gygax and Kay designed their own miniature rules with toy soldiers with a large collection of 54mm and 70mm figures, where they used small firecrackers to simulate explosions.
Amazing.
I'm just surprised they didn't blow their fingers off or something, man.
Maybe they did. You don't need them. You can. I always run that situation in my head. I'm like, what happens if I lost my hands? Like, I couldn't play computer anymore. I'd be like, my life's basically over. I'm like, no, wait. I could still roll dice, move models.
With your stumps?
Yeah, with my stumps. I'd put like hooks, like the craps table mover things.
Yeah.
I'd just put those on. I'd have so many different like handles. And I'm like, you know what?
True.
I could probably still war game with it. Or I'd just like tell someone what to do. Be like, Shane, can you just move that 8 inches? No, 30 degrees, I said. 30 degrees. God damn it,
27.
Damn it, Shane. Anyways, yeah.
True.
Carry on.
By the time he reached his teens, Gygax had a voracious appetite for pulp fiction authors such as Robert Howard, Jack Vance, and H.P. Lovecraft. Gygax was a mediocre student, and in 1956, a few months after his father died, he dropped out of high school and joined the Marines. After being diagnosed with atypical pneumonia, he was given a medical discharge and moved back home with his mother. Shortly after his return, a friend introduced him to Avalon Hill's new wargame, Gettysburg. And Gygax soon became obsessed with the game, often playing marathon sessions once a week or more.
I've actually played that, Gettysburg.
Yeah?
Yeah, by Avalon Hill, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to expand, but that's a whole story. And I feel like I don't have time for that.
We'll put it in the pile.
Put it in the pile. All right, it's over here. Carry on.
It was also from Avalon Hill that he ordered the first blank hex mapping sheets that were available, which then he employed to design his own games. About the same time as he discovered Gettysburg, his mother reintroduced him to Mary Jo Powell, who he had known from his earlier childhood years. He was smitten, and after a short courtship, persuaded her to marry him. So it was funny when I was researching this, I'm like, did they really have to add persuaded her to marry him? Like, she had to be convinced? But, I mean, I don't know, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like technically we've all persuaded the women. Persuade is an interesting word.
Is it persuade or tricked?
I mean, he was a war gamer.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, I mean, depends who you ask.
The young couple briefly moved to Chicago, where Gygax worked as a shipping clerk at Kemper Insurance and studied anthropology at the University of Chicago. Despite his commitments to his job, raising a family, school, and his political volunteerism, Gygax continued to play war games. It reached the point that Mary Jo, pregnant with their second child, believed he was having an affair and confronted him in a friend's basement, only to discover him and his friends sitting around a map-covered table. I just think that's hilarious. Like, are you cheating on me? And he's just like, what? There's like a handful of dice and fucking little miniatures on the table.
Drops the dice on the ground and rolls sixes.
Yeah.
Bro, that's relatable. It's like, where are you sneaking out to every night?
Pretzel crumbs all down his chest and shit. It's like, yeah, I'm cheating on you.
War games.
Yeah.
The answer is yes, it's just not with a woman.
I'd say if your boyfriend or husband plays war games, they ain't going anywhere. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, you got them locked down. Don't worry.
Yeah, so we fast forward again a few years. Gary and Mary have their third child and moved back to Lake Geneva. By 1966, Gygax was active in the wargame hobby world and was writing many magazine articles on the subject. Gygax learned about author of The War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells' Little Wars, a book for play of military miniature wargames. Gygax looked for innovative ways to generate random numbers, and he used not only common six-sided dice, but dice of all 5 platonic solid shapes, which he discovered in a school catalogue.
Oh,
Yeah.
what a boring way of finding dice.
I know, right?
As in a school catalogue.
Why would you even read a school catalogue?
Actually, you know what? I'm thinking back to primary school. I remember they had like a book week, and it had like not just Goosebumps books in there, which were dope, but like a myriad of different things.
Is that like where you order it or something, and then like you fill it out, and your parents put money in there or pay by whatever, and then
you like pick it up from the library? Gosh.
Yeah.
Such a dead art, because it's like, well, just download the PDF, dude. Put in your mum's credit card.
True.
You're good to go.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, okay, maybe that's what he was looking at. He was like looking through all the books, all the H.P. Lovecraft books. He's like, I want to order that. I want to get 3 of those because just, so I can have one in every room of my house. What are these dice? Mum!
True. D8s and D12s and shit.
There's more than D6?
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
There's many Ds, dude.
So much D. He actually loved... That's not in there, but he loved just so many D. All the Ds. All shapes and sizes.
Full of D. Yeah. In 1967, Gygax co-founded the International Federation of Wargamers, the IFW.
Truth. What a step up.
Oh, yeah. With
From
Bill
ordering
Spear.
dice in a... Sorry.
It's just a club, dude. It's not. It just sounds fancy. These nerds, man, and their names. There's plenty more, don't you worry. With Bill Spear and Scott Duncan, the IFW grew rapidly, especially by assimilating several pre-existing wargaming clubs and aimed to promote interest in wargames of all periods. It provided a forum for wargamers via its newsletters and societies, which enabled them to form local groups and share rules. The same year, Gygax organised a 20-person gaming meet in the basement of his home. This event would later be called Gen Con Zero. The following year, Gygax rented Lake Geneva's vine-covered horticultural hall for $50, which is about $400 USD these days, to hold the first Lake Geneva convention, also known as Gen Con for short. Gen Con is now one of North America's largest annual hobby game gatherings, and Gygax met Dave Arneson, the future co-creator of D&D, at the second Gen Con in 1969.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually a lot of money to hire a hall back then. 400 USD.
Yeah.
Oh, I just saw you on the camera take another swig. I tried to analyze which beer you had, but still no luck.
You gotta wait, dude.
Because, I think you could hire a hall. In fact, I know you can hire a hall for one day for about $300 Australian, which is what's 200. Yeah, it seems expensive, but it was for a convention.
They paid it. Yeah.
So maybe it was a big hall. Was it over multiple days? Who knows? Anyways, it seemed expensive.
Yeah. But so together with Don Kay, Mike Reese, and Leon Tucker, Gygax created a military miniature society called the Lake Geneva Tactical Studies Association, the LGTSA, in 1970. With its first headquarters in Gygax's basement. Shortly after, Robert Kuntz and Gygax founded the Castle and Crusade Society of the IFW.
Sorry, I'm gonna need those names again.
It was Robert Kuntz.
I wanted all the names. Why did you think I just wanted old cunty?
I'm almost tempted. Should we beep that dude?
Oh, it's been beeped.
It's his name though.
No, it was. No, I changed it. I took creative license over it, and then I made it something it should never have been. I'll beep it.
All right. Late October 1970, Gygax lost his job at the insurance company after almost 9 years. Unemployed and now with a family of 5 children, he tried to use his enthusiasm for games to make a living by designing board games for commercial sale.
Goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend.
Oh, I'm back.
You have been the one.
Discord dropped out.
You have been the one for me. When I saw your face on the Discord stream, I now know what to do. Carry on.
This bit out.
So, well, last time you tuned in here, you were talking about how old mate was unemployed with 5 kids, and he thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pursue my dreams of being a miniature wargamer.
He designed board games for commercial sale.
Oh, sorry. In my head, that's the same thing.
Though, this proved unsuitable when he only grossed $882 in 1971, which is about $5,600 nowadays. So he sort of struggled that year.
For sure.
Yeah, so he began cobbling shoes in his basement, which provided him with a steady income and gave him more time for pursuing his interest in game development. So that's when they used to fix shoes back in the day. Now we just throw them out.
Well, I mean, it's another story. You know what? There are still cobblers. I watched a guy fix a shoe once. We'll get to that some other time. That's more of a beers and banter thing.
Yeah. Bring it up in beers and banter, dude.
I'll put it on the pile. The pile.
Yeah. Okay, 1971. He began doing some editing at work at Guide on Games, a publisher of war games, for which he produced the board games Alexander the Great and Dunkirk, the Battle of France. Earlier that same year, Gygax published Chainmail, a miniatures war game that simulated medieval-era combat, which he had originally published in the Castle and Crusade Society's fanzine, The Domesday Book. Guide on Games hired Gygax to produce a wargaming with miniatures series of games, and a new edition of Chainmail in 1971 was the first book in the series. The first edition of the book included a fantasy supplement of the rules. These comprised a system for warriors, wizards, and various monsters of non-human races, drawn from the works of J.R.R. Tolkien and other sources.
Nice.
Yeah.
He's got some good sources.
Yeah.
H.P. Lovecraft and J.R.R. Tolkien.
Oh, yeah.
Gygax, you're winning me over.
For a small publisher like Guide Games, Chainmail was relatively successful, selling about 100 copies per month.
Wow.
Yeah. It is believed that Dave Arneson adapted the Chainmail rules for his fantasy Blackmoor campaign, and in late November of 1972, Dave and his friend Dave McGarry, inventor of a board game called Dungeon, that's Dungeon with an exclamation mark on the end, travelled to Lake Geneva.
You didn't know.
to show their respective games to Gygax in his role as representative of Guide on Games. Gygax saw potential in both games and was especially excited by Arneson's role-playing game. Gygax and Arneson immediately started to collaborate on creating the fantasy game, which is the role-playing game which was renamed into Dungeons & Dragons by his then-wife's suggestion.
Oh, the wife coming up clutch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. 2 weeks after Arneson's Blackmoor demonstration, Gygax had produced a 50-page set of rules and was ready to try on his 2 eldest children. In a setting he called Greyhawk, this group rapidly expanded to include Don Kay, Robert Kuntz, and eventually a circle of players. I know, man. Every time I wrote it, I'm like, this guy's name, like...
I mean, back then it would have been fine, right?
He's German. It's spelled Kuntz.
It's not any better. We'll have to put the explicit... Oh, we put that on all
That's
of
on
them.
every episode.
Yeah.
So Gygax sent the 50 pages of rules to his wargaming contacts and asked them to playtest the new game. Gygax and Arneson continued to trade notes about their respective campaigns, and the final draft, however, contained changes that were not vetted by Arneson, and Gygax's vision differed on some rules details Arneson had preferred. Based on the feedback he'd received, Gygax created a 150-page revision of the rules by mid-1973. Several aspects of the system...
How many pages?
150 pages.
Okay. Yeah,
150 page revision. Yeah, so it went from 50 to 150. I think that's the interpret here. Yeah.
Wow. That's
big old.
Wow.
Big old book. Several aspects of the system governing magic in the game are inspired by the Dying Earth stories of fantasy author Jack Vance. Notably that magic users in the game forget the spells that they have learned immediately upon casting them and must restudy in order to cast them again. The system as a whole drew upon the work of authors such as Robert E. Howard, Tolkien, Bram Stoker, and others. He asked Guide on Games to publish it, but the 3-volume set in a labelled box was beyond the scope of the small publisher. Gygax attempted to pitch the game to Avalon Hill, but the largest company in wargaming did not understand the new concept of role-playing and turned down the offer.
Oh.
Jokes on them, right?
Yeah, legit.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned someone, Bram Stoker, just then. You said he was drawn on the... I was like, I've heard that name before. That is the person that wrote Dracula.
Oh, I heard it too as well, but I couldn't put any of his work, in mind.
Yeah. I think it's because there is when people talk about a particular Dracula movie, they say Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah.
Or when they talk about that universe, they say Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah,
Anyways,
yeah. I suppose because Dracula's been redone so many times, there's so many different universes of it.
Totally, for sure.
Yeah.
So if people are listening, they're like, I've heard that name, like I just did. That's why. Old Dracula.
Yeah. That's it. Gygax left Guide Games in 1973, and in October, with Don Kay as a partner, founded Technical Studies Rules, later known as the TSR Incorporated. The two men each invested... I told you, man, they love their bloody acronyms and shit.
Don't they?
The two men each invested $1,000 in the venture. That's in 1973 too, so I didn't even exchange it for nowadays money.
It's probably about $6,000.
It's probably a fair bit. In venture in order to print 1,000 copies of Dungeons and Dragons. They also tried to raise money by immediately publishing a set of wargame rules called Cavaliers and Roundheads, but sales were very poor. When the printing costs for Dungeons and Dragons rose from 2,000 to 2,500, they still did not have enough capital to publish it. Worried that other playtesters and wargamers now familiar with Gygax's rules would bring a similar product to the market first, the two accepted an earlier offer in December 1973 by game-playing acquaintance Brian Bloom to invest $2,000 in TSR to become one equal third partner. Excuse me.
You're right.
Bloom's investment finally brought the financing that enabled them to publish D&D. The first commercial version of D&D was released by TSR in January of 1974 as a boxed set. Sales of the hand-assembled print run of 1,000 copies, put together in Gygax's home, sold out in less than a year. And in 2018, the first printing of the box set sold at auction for more than $20,000.
Struth. They could hire so many halls for that money. So many.
That was in 2018, dude. So
yeah,
I mean, you can still hire a few, but
yeah, that's true. You can hire one or two.
Imagine coming across something that was that old, though. Especially,
man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know what? We've got a wargamer in our Discord, Foggy Highway. I wonder what his oldest piece of wargaming thing is.
That'd be good to know. We'll have to hit him up and ask him.
Probably not quite that old, but I mean, he's been around.
Yeah, man. At the end of 1974, with sales of D&D skyrocketing, the future looked bright for Gygax and Kay, who were only 36. However, in 1975, Kay unexpectedly died of a heart attack. He had not made any specific provision. He had not made any specific provision.
Sorry, who did?
Kay, Don Kay, his Gygax's
Don Kay,
childhood friend, yeah.
Gygax's best mate.
Yeah.
Oh man, Gygax would have been devastated.
Oh man, no doubt.
Because I was like, this Don Kay guy, every time Gygax went to a new project or a new whatever, Don Kay was right there. Damn, man, I'm sad.
That's it, man. Side by side.
36, lost your best friend, who you've done his. Yeah, you mentioned Don Kay when he was just
teens, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't it Don Kay that they were just playing? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm blown away, man. I feel like I've just watched a TV series and one of the main characters just died.
True.
Damn.
Yeah. He had not made any specific provision in his will regarding his 1/3 share of the company, simply leaving his entire estate to his wife, Donna. Although she had worked briefly for TSR as an accountant, she had not shared her husband's enthusiasm for gaming and made it clear that she would not be having anything to do with managing the company. Gygax characterized her as, quote, less than personable. After Don died, she dumped all the TSR materials off on the front of my porch. It would have been impossible to manage a business with her involved as a partner, end quote.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
At least she didn't try to extort the business or anything like that. She just said, I'm done. You do it. You do it.
Yeah. After Kay's death, TSR was forced to relocate from Kay's dining room table to Gygax's basement. In July 1975, Gygax and Bloom reorganized their company from a partnership to a corporation called TSR Hobbies. Gygax owned 150 shares, Bloom owned the other 100 shares, and both had the option to buy up to 700 shares at any time in the future. But TSR had nothing to publish. D&D was still owned by the three-way partnership of TSR Incorporated, and neither Gygax or Bloom had the money to buy out Kay's wife. Bloom persuaded a reluctant Gygax to allow his father, Melvin Bloom, to buy Donna's shares, and those were converted to 200 shares into TSR Hobbies. In addition, Brian bought another 140 shares. These purchases reduced Gygax from the majority shareholder in control of the company to a minority shareholder. He effectively became Bloom's employee.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, took it pretty hard there, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Like, the thing you built, you can't afford to be the owner of.
Yeah.
And you just start watching it. It either dies or someone else takes over. Man.
Yeah.
Not long after your best mates just died. Struth. Poor Gygax.
Oh, pretty rough, man.
Man, someone should make a movie out of this.
You nearly could, and like we'll kick up.
I
got more.
Yeah, it's spicy. I'm excited about the time frame too. I don't know if you're going to talk about some of the stuff that happens in 1975-ish, but we'll see what happens.
You'll see. So Gygax wrote supplements for the original D&D game, and in the same year he created a magazine, The Strategic Review, with himself as the editor. But wanting a more industry-wide periodical, he hired Tim Kask as TSR's first employee to change the magazine into the fantasy periodical called The Dragon. The Dragon debuted in 1976, and Gygax commented on its success years later. At no time did I ever contemplate so great a success or so long a lifespan. In TSR, in 1976, TSR moved out of Gygax's house and into its first professional home, known as the Dungeon Hobby Shop.
Nice.
D&D would go on to change the face of gaming, giving video games, still yet to be invented, many of their signature themes. Though frequently the butt of jokes, such as a cliche nerdy pastime, the game's fans are legion, counting Dame Judi Dench, Stephen Colbert, Mike Myers, and Vin Diesel among them. Now these
Diesel.
are just the early... Oh yeah, he loves it, man.
The diesel train. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now these are just the early years of Gary Gygax, the father of role-playing games. D&D has still so much more growing to do throughout its various editions, supplements, AD&D, and Gary's untimely death in 2008 at the age of 69. These later years deserve an episode dedicated to their own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that's something I put together. So sources from the Historical Miniatures Gaming Society, Dungeon Master, The Life and Legacy of Gary Gygax, King Nerd, Trials, Triumphs, and Trivialities, number 131, A Brief History of Role-Playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, there's so much in there.
Man, that's only the early stuff, man. Like, if I had have gone through the entire history of D&D, this would be like a 10-hour podcast.
Oh, for sure.
I can't talk that
long. I don't know, man. That's I remember when you were telling me about it. You're like, at the start, you're like, oh yeah, I'll just look into like the history of D&D, and then like a day later, you're like, okay, so I was spent like 3 hours and you were so excited to talk about it, and I was like, I mean, in my head, I'm like, is it that interesting? But damn, dude, it's like a freaking drama.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So there's this dude who at one point is unemployed with 5 kids and a wife that sounds... Oh, no, his wife was fine. It was old... I forget his name. Don K.
Yeah, his wife was no good.
Yeah, she was no bueno.
Yeah.
No bueno on that one. But, yeah, and he made like a couple grand for an entire year to support his family.
Yep.
To trying to pursue his dream, and then that failed. Oh man, dude, what a story.
Man, yeah. Like, there's just so much, and I had to leave out so much too. Like, yeah. So look, I hope you guys as listeners enjoyed that. Like, that was the first time we've done a deep dive on some sort of particular topic, and I know I sort of wrapped it up quickly at the end there, but like, I just keep going for hours if I really could. It's so interesting, and for someone like me who never played D&D, barely touched RPGs, I couldn't not keep researching. You know, like I just didn't know where to draw the line. Like,
yeah, fair enough. I think
yeah.
I think you've left it at a really good turning point for D&D, that 1975, 1976 timeline.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what happens from then till almost now. I mean, I'm sure that's an entirely, that's probably 2 more episodes. So if you're listening to this and you liked the deep dive, you liked this kind of episode that we've done, let us know. Jump in the Discord or on Facebook or one of our many portals, which you can find on hobbyhomies.com. Let us know because, I mean, I'm pumped. I want to hear your part 2, Shane. I want to hear what happens next. Yeah.
I'll need a month to get ready for it at least.
Yeah. I think in 1975, I feel like it must have been around then that Games Workshop went and started buying copies of Dungeons and Dragons.
I think it was. Yeah, I got a feeling it was. I didn't even touch on the whole crossover there. Because I think like, yeah, where I've sort of left it now is Dungeons and Dragons was like just picking up. Like it finally got the break that it sort of needed. They got to open their own like hobby shop. They're not doing it from their kitchen table and garage anymore. Yeah.
I can't remember which year that Games Workshop obtained the official distribution rights to Dungeons and Dragons. And you said TSR, and I'm pretty sure Games Workshop... Oh, man, I'll leave it for next time, but I'm pretty sure at some point Games Workshop buys a lot of the rights that TSR has.
Okay.
Which I read this separately because there was at one point where I was trying to find out how Games Workshop started it for one of our episodes.
Yep.
And I can't quite remember why, but those 2 things, Dungeons and Dragons and TSR, sunk in my head as like a big turning point for Games Workshop that took them from a board gaming shop to an enterprise.
Yeah.
And when you started talking about 1975, you said TSR, I was like, hang on a minute. At some point, Games Workshop comes in here and something big happens. So maybe we'll hit that up in part 2, and it'll be interesting to see because that's a big crossover for us because we're all about Games Workshop stuff here. 40k Age of Sigmar, all the games we play.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to hear the Dungeons and Dragons crossover into that. So yeah, man.
Hell yeah, dude.
I don't care. I want you to do a part 2.
We'll see how it goes. Whatever happened to the listeners enjoy it.
Whatever happened to old KUNTZ? Where'd he go?
I don't know. I think he just vanished into the background, dude.
Oh wait, I think Gygax left with Don K to start up their own thing, and they must have left him at the previous thing.
Yeah, but he was also a play tester as well. He was one of their like gaming buddies, I think. So that he might have just been a dude they knew at their local hobby shop or something.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. To lose your best friend at 36, the person you've just done life with.
Yeah, I know, man. And like even Gygax too. Like he died young, like 69.
It's true.
Yeah, that's a spoiler alert there.
So I was going to say, dude. Wow.
It was in 2008.
2008, damn.
Yeah, he had
feels recent.
Yeah, he had an abdominal aortic aneurysm.
It's true.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be fun.
How old was he?
69.
Nice.
I was wondering how long it'd take you.
I would have woken up if I didn't pick it now, I would have been woken up at 3 a.m. and been like,
yeah.
I gotta text Shane.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's funny, like,
man.
As I was reading it, I've written down just a couple of like little facts here. That was one of them, but he actually received a lot of death threats regarding D&D from like just randoms, man. And he always had either a 357, a 9mm, or a 45 caliber pistol in arm's reach because like all the death threats he used to get. And like I just feel like what have you got death threats for this guy? And it makes you think of like people that would like get so upset about edition changes and stuff like that. And I just imagined like 40k like rules get nerfed, and then the guys that write the rules get death threats and stuff because their armies now are compatible.
Yeah, it's so that's it. The 9th edition death threats.
Yeah.
What do you mean Space Marines have 2 wounds apiece?
True.
Death threats. You know what? It's so difficult to cast my mind back to an era I never lived in.
Yeah.
But like now death threats are super common because everyone's on Twitter. So it's like, easy. I'll just DM this person and say, I hope you die with a fake account anonymously.
Yeah. But he would have got like letters in his mailbox, man, or like
to his house.
Yeah. Maybe emails like at the later years, but like it's pretty
it's different when it comes to your house where you live, because you're like, well, the person that just threatened to kill me knows where I live.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would have thought in my head that back then, when this was the only version of this game, right? D&D didn't exist before this. You would just be so thrilled that something existed at all, you know? But I guess the fans, because they were so small, the fan base was so small, they would have been that much more ferocious, you know?
Oh, they would have taken it almost personally too, man. Like,
yeah, so, it's not like 80,000 people worldwide where you're like, yeah, some people are going to hate it, but the majority love it. That's why you do well.
Yeah.
I wonder if you're talking about just thousands of people as opposed to tens of thousands for a war game, you know?
Yeah, that's right. And like they started by he would send out the rules to his like playtesters and that, and the only way they could have done it back then was like slap it all in the post and mail it. And imagine mailing like a 50-page little thing out. Like, we think easily nowadays I'll just email a PDF or whatever. No worries. But like back then, and he was sharing notes with Arniston, like through their different campaigns from their different groups. Like, again, they're just posting stuff to each other. So this stuff takes a long time. It's not like if me and you were to do the same thing nowadays, we could play a game on one night, jump on and then write an email to each other and then done. Like,
yeah, dude,
it's all contained in that one day.
Legit, like we could test play a game in the morning. Even now in COVID times, where we can't even see each other, we could jump in Discord, do a video chat, play through a campaign together, go have lunch. I might write some revisions for the rules, email it through to you as a PDF. You read it and you're like, hey, cool, man, let's hit it again tonight. You know, we can play 2 games, revise rules all in the 24-hour span, whereas he would have had to, send a thing out that took X amount of days, let's say 5 best case scenario to get there.
Yeah.
The guy has to somehow call his friends and go, let's organize a day where we can all meet up, play it. You're talking like something that took us 24 hours would take them months, man.
Yeah, or even weeks, like at best, if you live nearby.
At best, yeah. If you can instantly grab a group, play the game multiple times, write your revision on your reviews back, send it back, have him read it. Yeah, man, that's wild. Yeah. Gosh. We're so lucky.
No wonder I'd say it takes them so long, but it probably took them in total of like 3 or 4 years, I think, to sort of go from that chainmail, almost like beta, and then changing it up and going into what D&D eventually became.
Which is impressive. But when it's your life, which it would have been, he would have found a way. Yeah. It would have been like, I could post it and it might take 5 days, or I could just drive a measly 6 hours and drop it off to someone because England's small. Wait, I never even asked. It's American, right? Yeah. That's how GW got it.
Yeah, they were in Wisconsin. That was where Lake Geneva. That's where they sort of lived.
Yeah, that's right. I think that has something to do with it too.
GW, I do remember reading something. They had one of their employees, from one of GW's employees, I can't remember his name, but he was their gateway into the United Kingdom. That's how they got D&D into the UK.
Yeah, I think Games Workshop was the way that D&D got into the UK.
Yeah, I think they knew someone that worked there, or they managed to make some sort of connection, which was obviously, one of the best things for them.
Because I think it was this person you're talking about was the one that started the relationship, and then Games Workshop was the only importer of TSR stuff. So if someone wanted the rules for anything, Dungeons and Dragons, for example, they had to physically go to a Games Workshop store. There was no online remind. No. You got to remind the people. This is in 1975. You had to know there was a Games Workshop store somewhere, and you would drive.
But there was probably only one Games Workshop store at that time.
There was, dude. When they first started importing it, there was.
Yeah, so it's like the Games Workshop store. So it's not even like I've got one that's an hour from me or like 30 minutes from me, which nowadays it's pretty much one in Australia. There's one within 2 hours of no matter where you live, unless you live in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
But any major city, you've got one within 2 hours drive, which sounds probably like a lot to people like Final Dinosaur and other and international listeners, but that's that's down the road in Australia. It's only down the road. Yeah,
absolutely. So. Yeah, I don't think they opened. I don't know if Games Workshop even opened. Oh, anyway, so we'll talk about that in our next one because there's a huge tie-in there.
Yeah,
they
good crossover.
Bought Dungeons and Dragons, imported it. Opened their first actual retail store, all that kind of stuff. It's a history all of its own. So yeah. Thanks for doing all that, man. That was dope.
That's all right. Thanks for listening, you guys, and you, Fox.
No worries. Anytime. I was actually I felt like a listener when you were talking about bringing this information. I was like, well, for once, I'm not preparing anything. I mean, I'm just coming in with a couple beers and I get to listen to the history of D&D. Yeah. Before everyone else, I felt like I had exclusive listening rights. So, yeah, man, that's cool. That's dope.
Yeah, it was fun. It was actually really fun to do the research and I was talking to you earlier today, and I reckon I put 10 hours into that, just reading stuff and different websites and different articles and different.
It's because so much. It happens to me all the time because. When it's something like D&D or, that we haven't really touched outside of, I've done, I think 2 or 3 sessions, but that's playing the game. That's not knowing the history of it at all. You kind of overcompensate and you want to I want to get the right information straight from the correct sources. I don't want to go on a YouTube video and listen to some guy talk about it. I want to get to the nitty gritty and make sure. So I appreciate that because I know that's what you spend a lot of time doing, making sure the stuff you just talked about is the actual history. It's not like third party. It's you got that from reliable sources. So I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries, man. No worries.
But if you're a listener and you froth that as much as I did, because I love that, let us know because that's something we would love to do more of. Just straight get history of games, backstories, even lore videos on particular factions in particular systems and all that kind of stuff. Really deep dive into things. We'd love to do that more, but, we're curious to know if that's something you guys actually want to hear or, so let us know on our Facebook. You can just message us or please jump in the Discord. That's where the magic happens, so we can chat to you there.
Yeah, hells yeah. You can chat to us any day. We're always around.
We live in there.
There's plenty of other people there to chat to. We pretty much do. So you find links on our hobbyhomies.com. If you haven't got Discord, it's so easy to get and use. Just make an account. You can do it on your web base on your PC. You can get PC apps, phone apps. It's such a good little community we've got going on there. So we would love to have you there.
And we've got because you and I aren't primarily RPG players. Although I've got a game coming. Yeah, we'll talk about all that on another episode. But it's something I think is safe to say we want to get more into. We actually have. When we first created the Hobby Homies Discord, we put an RPG room in there. So it's a little quiet because we've only got a handful of players that get into the RPGs, but we would love to have you guys in there. If you're listening to this, you're like, oh, yeah, I froth RPGs. Jump in the Discord, jump in our RPG channel, tell us about your campaigns, the systems that you play, and all that kind of stuff. We froth that.
Oh, yeah, that'd be so cool to see some photos of boards and miniatures or even character sheets I know Fox frosts rules and stat lines and stuff like that. So
yeah. Tell me your builds. I want to know how much decks you're rocking and why. What's your plan? What's your approach? Yeah, everything, man. Just let Just jump in there. That'd be dope.
Yeah, dude. And that's where we have our live episodes too.
Yeah, in fact, next week. So this episode that you're listening to came out Sunday, the 30th of August. The next one that we're going to be doing is actually a live episode because we do those on the first Wednesday of every month.
Yep.
So this episode comes out Sunday the 30th. And then like 3 days after that, we have our next episode, which is a live episode.
Yep.
Which is effectively Shane and I talking, but we do it live in Discord with all of our Discord users. And yeah, it's dope. This upcoming live episode, we're going to announce our 2 August giveaways. There's a Patreon only giveaway and there's a pandemic board game giveaway.
Yep.
We'll also announce what our 2 new giveaways will be, as well as throughout the live episode, we play games of all kinds, quizzes, a game I like to call What, Where we take photos of things and you have to send it into the Discord and run around your house and take photos of stuff. And we give away little prize packs for that. And we've got some really good prize packs I'm excited about. So
we've got some good ones coming.
Yeah, it's going to be dope. So please, the first Wednesday of every month, this next one is September, Wednesday the 2nd, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Jump in our Discord. You'll see us all talking about it and preparing for it anyway, so jump in there. You can get our Discord link on hobbyhomies.com. And yeah, please jump in there. It's my favorite thing for every month.
Oh yeah, it's always good fun, and everyone has a blast too. The games we play, and yeah, man, I can't wait.
It's just a good time. Yeah.
yeah.
Bring your beers, rock up in front of your computer, log into the Discord. Let's get rocking.
That's it. So you guys know where to find us, hobbyhomies.com. Make sure you check out Churchy on YouTube. He's now streaming on Twitch, so get around that too. His streams are going off. They're always good fun.
Twitch.tv/churchy_plays.
That's the one, dude. That's the one. And you'll find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube,
Google.
Yeah, that's Google. Just Google, yeah.
Just Google Hobby Homies. You'll find us. I mean, you're already here, so you found us. But if you want to find more of us,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys next time on the live episode.
Before you leave, Shane,
I
want to do probably my favorite thing that we do, and that's thank our Patrons.
Yeah, better do that.
Gotta thank the lads.
Jesus.
This has never been more true than it is right now, but we cannot do these episodes without our Patrons.
No, absolutely not.
So we just want to give them a quick thanks, because literally without them, we're kind of fucked.
Yeah, true. So, as always, we'll shout out Final Dinosaur, our Belgian representative, Foggy Highway, Wise Old Wargamer, Churchy, the 3rd member of our little love triangle threesome we got going on here, Dave.
My wife specifically asked me not to say threesome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's like, it's fine that you guys do it. I just don't want everyone to know. I was like, all right, fine. Love triangle.
Love triangle. Dave, our organizer of the 40K League, GTO, and friend of the show. Rory, the wet palette extraordinaire.
We've also got Caitlin, the lover of all things Shane. We've got Brett, one of the hosts of the TCG podcast. Check them out. They're on Podbean. Thoughtless Casual Gaming. We've got Clinton, the lover of green demons, which he's just done a phenomenal piece for a upcoming. I mean, you got to jump in the Discord to see it, but he's converted a throne. Anyways, I don't want to get into it, but a lover of green demons.
Yep.
We've got Joe, as always, not a mini wargaming person, just a regular PC wargaming person, a normalton, a normal person, unlike us, slightly like us, but slightly less weird.
Yeah.
And we've got Lethal Lee, the strongest strong of all the strongs. So thank you guys. Your ongoing support is honestly huge, especially now when we can't get in the studio and we've got to do our own setups and our own editing and literally everything. You guys get us through. Thank you so much. Yeah. We love you. We love you. I'm not scared to say it.
Okay. We respect you.
We respect. Much respect, much love. All right, fam.
All right.
Let's skedaddle.
Yeah, now we can end the show.
Now we can. Now we've done the most important thing. We should
true.
start the episodes with that.
Probably won't forget it that way.
True.
All right, guys. Peace.
Toodles.
Watch me turn up, roll up, yeah, you know I burn up, burn up. Woo.